Welcome to History Stories Dose, one story 10 parts, subscribe now.
For nearly 30 years, Henry VIII had chased one dream above all else, a son. He had divorced one queen, executed another, and torn England away from the Catholic Church to secure his dynasty. Now, standing beside his third wife, Jane Seymour, Henry believed his long nightmare was finally over. In October 1537, the birth of a healthy baby boy named Edward validated Henry's long, destructive pursuit and secured the Tudor future. Henry was overwhelmed with joy. Only 12 days after giving birth, Jane Seymour became seriously ill from a postpartum infection. Despite every effort to save her, she died, leaving the king devastated. For the first time, fate alone had taken the woman Henry truly cherished. Jane was the only wife Henry later chose to be buried beside. Yet even grief could not stop the business of the crown. The urgent need for foreign alliances soon overrode his personal mourning. Henry agreed to marry a German princess he had never met, Anne of Cleves, trusting a famous portrait by the artist Hans Holbein the Younger. This high-stakes royal marriage became a blind diplomatic contract, entirely reliant on a single, flattering painting. When Anne finally arrived in England, Henry was disappointed. He barely recognized the woman from the portrait. The marriage was a disaster from the beginning. Just 6 months later, it was peacefully annulled. This rapid, bloodless collapse avoided the violence of Henry's previous unions, marking a rare break in his history of marital tragedy. Anne of Cleves accepted the annulment with total grace, choosing peaceful submission over political resistance. For her compliance, she received a generous income and beautiful estates, remaining in England with the title of the king's beloved sister. By stepping off the board of the deadly game of Tudor queenship, Anne of Cleves successfully escaped the doom that claimed so many others. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. Focusing on those final 2 words reveals the closing years of Henry's reign. The red brick facade of Hampton Court Palace stood as a monument to Tudor power, but inside, its corridors were increasingly isolated. King Henry VIII's physical health was in decline. He sought to recapture his lost youth. The Renaissance prince once admired across Europe was slipping away, replaced by an aging monarch desperate to return to his glory days. This physical decay and psychological desperation created a volatile atmosphere. The court had become a dangerous environment for anyone who stepped too close to the throne. Soon after, Henry married his 5th wife, Catherine Howard. She was only about 19 years old, stepping into a marriage defined by a massive age gap. Catherine was charming and vivacious. Her arrival brought a burst of excitement back into the aging king's life. For a brief period, Henry appeared happier than he had been in years. The music and laughter returned, masking the tension within the palace. But youthful charm was a fragile shield against the changing moods of the king. As his health waned, his tolerance for perceived slights grew thinner. Then a scandal erupted. Evidence emerged that Catherine had engaged in relationships before and possibly during her marriage to the king. Historians still debate the exact truth and extent of the accusations leveled against her. The objective truth offered no protection. To Henry, the rumors represented a betrayal. In 1542, the 19-year-old queen was brutally executed inside the cold stone walls of the Tower of London. Once again, another queen had lost her life. Howard's naivete left her exposed to the lethal reality of her husband, proving that charm offered no protection from his suspicion. Henry's final marriage was to Catherine Parr. She was a different kind of queen than Catherine Howard. Parr was an intelligent, well-educated widow. She understood how dangerous life beside Henry had become. Her survival strategy was precise. She worked to identify and avoid the political traps laid out by rival factions within the court. She adopted a dual role. She cared for the king during his failing health, while acting as a diplomat who reunited him with his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth. Most importantly, she survived. Her presence on the throne until Henry's death was the result of calculated personal and political management. History remembers these 2 women by how they died or survived. Yet their contrasting stories serve as a mirror reflecting Henry's shift in character. The young prince who once commanded European admiration had been replaced by a grim, deeply suspicious ruler. The fate of these women provides the ledger for his final years. The transition from a Renaissance prince to a ruler defined by ruthlessness was complete. Parr's constant need to manage the king's shifting moods shows how volatile the inner circle of the court had become. As Henry's physical health failed, his paranoia reached its highest point. Even the king's closest allies and lifelong friends were beginning to discover a new truth about their sovereign. As the darkest chapter of Henry's reign begins, his inner circle has realized that proximity to the crown is the greatest risk of all. No one is safe anymore.